what do we have here? A fireside chat. The fund versus the Foundry. A battle of perspectives on AI startups. Taking this conversation forward, I invite the trio, speaker Mayuresh Raut, managing partner Seafund, speaker Kashyap, Pandya, co-founder BrahmVeda, and the moderator of the session, Jakobi. Jakobi is the immediate past president TiEcon and founder Jakobi Chocolatier. May we have the trio on stage.
Good morning, everyone. Can I get a good morning back? So after a session of Z and hearing about media, we are here for a session to talk about AI. And AI from a very different perspective. So most of us in this room consume AI. Some of us fund AI startups. And some of you are AI startups. So it's a three-way, it's a triangle. So we have people who consume AI, people who are building AI and tech, and people who are connecting the two and allowing the funding to happen. So I'm proud to have Mayuresh and Kashyap here. So Mayuresh comes with, I think, about 27 years of experience across multiple sectors. And he's today the co-founder and managing partner of Seafund. Seafund is a Category 1 and Category 2 AIF. And so I'm not going to give too much of introduction because I think the LinkedIn profile's out there and you can go through it. Kashyap is a dear friend again. And Kashyap is also into AI as someone who operates. He's a tech guy. So what I'm going to try and do today is to try and make both of you fight it out. And tell us about how it feels like when you're sitting on opposite ends of the table. While as usual, me, the guy who consumes AI, will consume your fight. So let's see how that goes. And we'll keep it conversational. We have about 38 minutes is what the clock shows us. Let's keep about 30 minutes and about 8 minutes or 9 minutes for Q&A. Are we good with that? Yeah, perfect. So just to set the context. To set the context, we talk about AI in everything today. So the other day I saw an advertisement for a fan, and it said AI-enabled fan. So we live in an era where everything is oversimplified. I come from an industry where in chocolate, everyone is a chocolatier today, and people come and ask me, so what's the difference? Because everyone says we make chocolate, we make chocolate. And I'm sure you go through exactly the same kind of context. And you go through exactly the same.
AI-enabled chocolate by any chance?
Sorry?
AI-enabled chocolate by any chance?
AI-enabled chocolates, yes. AI-enabled chocolates. But sitting on opposite ends of the table, if you could have a conversation to start with what you think, Kashyap, as what is AI and where it's going, from your perspective as someone who is an AI guy. And we could take that conversation after that and say, okay, how does the funder sees that? I will intervene in between to tell you as a consumer, does it make any sense to me? Is that fine? Perfect. So,
thank you, Jacob. Thank you, TiEcon, for inviting me. I'm less of a techie and more of a student of human behavior. So I'll put it this way, that AI is not a technology revolution. It's a human revolution. Because I think first time in the history, intelligence is not linked to biology. Intelligence is becoming a resource that we can create, shape, and upgrade. And that changes everything, not for the startup founders, but even for the society in general. And I'm sure Mayuresh will also agree with this, that technology changes the way we work. AI changes what we can become. And that is the power of AI. We all want that if we can unlock, it is not only create wealth, but it will create a better society.
So first of all, thanks for having me, Ty. Again, Kerala is almost a second home for us. We're almost a Kerala homegrown fund. We've been here for almost 8-9 years, 10th year running. And always great to see old friends again. AI, again, yeah, I mean, we are at the top of the hype cycle. It can't get any frothier than this. It's almost become an incestuous cycle. Cloud AI is buying servers from NVIDIA. NVIDIA is investing in Cloud AI. On the other side, OpenAI invests in Microsoft. Microsoft gives servers. They also work with NVIDIA. It's become a big money game. It's fantastic to read all these news items because it clearly shows that there are fundamental changes that are being worked upon. But a result of what is happening at the macro level has enormous implications for all of us, even here, all of us sitting in the room, and especially for founders. And when you're at the top of the hype cycle, it becomes extremely difficult, not only for founders, but for investors to figure out which is the horse that not only will be able to raise money at the top of the cycle, but also sustain the downturn. And with the downturn comes all the bad things. There will be firings, there will be job losses, startups will go bust. But despite that, how will you still remain standing? In our view, and I think that should be the perspective of everybody, this is another tool that we've had, that we've given access to. And the list is long and glorified, right? All the way from the steam engine to the chip, to the microprocessor, to GPUs, and now AI. I think all founders should approach everything as a problem first perspective rather than a tech perspective. By all means use this, but it still does not take away from the fact that the concrete moats still remain distribution. In our view, distribution will always win out over technology. The face of that technology will change. But the disproportionality of the changes and the disruptions that AI is bringing is another level. Everybody who keeps telling you that this is another version of things that we've seen in the past, it's not the same beast. General purpose AI is still some years away, but in the interim, there will be disruption. And the challenge this time around is, how do we ensure people who are without a meaningful way of employment are left with things to do, not only to give them a sustainable livelihood, which our government is doing, approaching to universal basic income, but at the same time, why do we wake up, right? We wake up because we are looking forward to doing something that adds value to our sense of self-worth, and at the same time doing something for society. How do we figure those out? Nobody knows what are the new sets of jobs that will be created. The hope is it will be more along the lines of what has happened in the past, but the jury is out.
So what we are seeing is AI transforming everything we're doing today. So we're seeing AI as a part of everything. So I'm sure if you ask the audience now, how many of you have opened a ChatGPT or a Perplexity this morning and asked for something, I'm sure 75% of you would raise your hands. And that's just the place where we live. But at the back end, AI is not about algorithms, and AI is like what you said, Kashyap, it's about people. Can you kind of take us a little more through a startup founder's mind, where as a startup founder, we are very deep tech, algorithms, etc. But that's the input. Most of the time, we hear startup founders talking about that as the output. Could you kind of give us a distinction between what you are doing differently? And Mayuresh, what we would like to hear from you is that really happening?
So I think that typically startup founders, mostly in the AI space, are techies. And techies start with the features that, okay, this is the great feature I have built using the latest technology. Can I find a customer for it? Now, as a Foundry, as BrahmVeda Ventures, as a venture studio, we start with customers. What is their pain point? What is the friction point? And then we try to get an insight that, is this a real problem? Then we use kind of imagination that how this problem can be solved. And then comes the intelligence part or an AI part, that how we can use this new technology to solve this problem so that the customers pay. So I think the journey is like that. So we always believe that start with the customer in mind, start with the pain point in mind, rather than, jump to the solution, because I think that's the challenge we have. And I think, as you mentioned in your opening remark, that you, me, everyone, we are the consumers of AI. We are the beneficiary of AI. If I am a beneficiary, first I should think as a creator, what benefit I am offering to you. So the perspective should be from the customer's point of view to build anything. In fact, I would put this question to you, because I am sure that you are also an active consumer of AI. Nowadays, we all are. How do you see AI being part of your life, your daily life? Probably that will also give us some insight, and Mayuresh, probably a business idea.
So just to answer your question, so I think we use a lot of AI now in content generation. As a chocolatier, so we have to go out and create content. And earlier, my content creator had a very easy life because what he told us was what I knew. Today, AI gives me prompts. AI tells me what's relevant. And his life has become doubly difficult. So that has eased my, not only eased, it's kind of made my life much easier, but it's also enabled me to ask the right questions to different people, which probably earlier I didn't know. So this is where, as a consumer of AI, this is what I see as a thing. But with so much of noise around AI, Mayuresh, what do you see as an investable AI startup? What do you look for? What is it? Because every other day you're seeing AI here, and everyone wants an AI startup. So what do you see, what do you look for? Probably the key thing you look for.
I wish I had a crystal ball. I would have a unicorn in each startup. No one does. No one has this. I'll tell you how crazy things are. All of you would have heard of Cursor, Replit, Hugging Face. These guys, once upon a time, is SaaS. These are the newer versions of SaaS businesses, right? Till very recently, if a SaaS business hit $1 million milestone in 24 months, 36 months, 48 months, it was, yeah, this guy's done something of note. These guys have gone, the names that I mentioned, these guys have reached $100 million in 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 24 months. Now, how do you compete? How do Indian founders compete with founders like this? The best I have seen is somebody who reached $500,000 in 45 days. If you forget looking at startups that reach $100 million in 12 months, but at least can we aspire to reach $10 million in, say, maybe 1 year, 2 years? Because even by looking at that, we are getting the magnitude down by 1/10. The best that I have seen so far is still going to take 720 days or almost two years plus. Is that good enough? The other problem is most of the bigger funds, I'm not one of India's biggest funds, but neither am I one of India's smaller funds. The bigger guys and the best founders are already sitting in the Silicon Valley. I mean, I was just telling Kashyap before we came in, Y Combinator literally came down to having 1 or 2 startups in their cohort last time round. But all our VCs are sitting, and the biggest guys who are showing up in the AI cohort of YC are Indian investors. Why are they doing that? Because they want to minimize their risks, and they want to go after guys who, at least in their wisdom, have the best talent, the best go-to-market, and have bucket loads of cash. Now, if you don't find yourself in that cohort, what choices do you have left with you? Either you come and talk to some of the big guys who still have an eye on the Indian founders and still are betting on Indian startups, or some of the mid-tier or lower guys who will probably not have the best ways of curating these startups. But the challenge is, if you even manage to snag these guys, there is a huge cliff beyond the Series A. Series B, there is not a cliff, there's a bottomless chasm. There's no money available. That's true on the deep tech side of things, that's true on the AI side of things. Now, if you cannot traverse your way through the first check, individual angel networks, to the first-time institutional fund, to the big guys, then you have a problem. And these are the challenges that founders are facing right now. And that's why if you have managing something like $1 billion under assets under management, then you're largely in spray and pray mode. And they can afford to do that because out of 10 investments, even if one works, imagine being the first check in a Google, Amazon. That's the bet. But otherwise, guys who don't have that corpus, you got to have a very curated, thought through investment thesis. And it's too early. I mean, every day you wake up, forget every day, every few hours things are different, right? Google will come in with Gemini 3 and then OpenAI will come up with something else, and then only to realize that these guys jumped the gun. So things are crazy. And that's where I believe, I know you wanted fireworks, but I'll agree with you and then I'll jump to the fireworks. That's where some well-run venture studios and foundries can add a lot of value.
What do you see as the biggest disconnect? So what is the biggest disconnect that you see today happening? And this goes for both of you. So while you're pitching to a fund or while you're listening to a founder, what is the disconnect that you see? Because I think the expectations today are very different.
Disconnect between?
The disconnect between a startup founder and the AI fund. So,
well, there are several points of disconnect. One is that I already alluded to, right? Most founders would like to believe that being tech first is the magic wand that will solve everything. It'll create needs, it'll address humankind. It does not work that way. For most folks, I mean, everybody knows this now, but when I used to talk about it maybe a couple of years back, before AI really hit prime time, we have to all understand that AI has been around since the 1950s. And it has gone through various avatars. It's only when George Hinton came up with his seminal paper that led to Transformers in 2015, that AI really had a use case. And this will be a cycle that will be repeated over and over and over again. So until and unless you start off with the problem, the fundamentals are not changed. The fundamentals of doing business in the 1500s are still true today. The fundamentals of having a startup in the 1940s are still true of having a startup today, which is you are working on a problem that you've experienced firsthand or you've seen that in your vicinity, and you using your experience, whether it be educational or work or your social connects, you believe you are able to solve that problem in the best way possible, smallest time possible, cheapest way possible. And if it's AI that you're using as a medium of solving that problem, so be it. That is the first disconnect. The second one is the one that Kashyap also mentioned, which is founders don't keep an eye, and that's a direct result of having the first approach. If you don't have a needle sharp eye on where is the business going to come from, you're in trouble. And I have two portfolio startups in my across two funds. One guy was the first guy who jumped on the Gen AI bandwagon, LLM bandwagon. And the other guy, we made an investment about 5-6 months back. And he's playing the AI game. Not just the PR game, but really using AI the way it's used. It'll be surprising to you which guy is doing better and which guy is not doing better. The first guy was in our entire portfolio, was the most mature and who had the wherewithal to go out and address and use these new age tools, has reached a plateau. The second guy, he has such stickiness with what the customer wants, such incredible domain knowledge, such incredible stickiness between the workflow, the data that he's working with, tweaking of foundational models and giving an offering at a certain cost. He is finding crazy resonance. He could approach the kind of crazy growth that I mentioned. But being the first nowhere gives you the advantage of being the best. You have to have this needle eye, razor eye on what the customer wants. Without that, it's dead on arrival.
So I have a curious question for Mayuresh. So I think he used the word bandwagon. Okay. So I think there are a lot of jargons, and there's always a, I think in early 2000 we had .coms in India. Okay. Nowadays we call them startups. Today all startups are AI startups. Okay. Probably they'll be again called startups, hopefully. So as an investor, how do you figure out that this is an AI startup? Because there have been blockchain guys, there have been data analytics guys, there have been, all sorts of technology that has been come and gone. So how do you differentiate between the hype and the habit-forming products?
See, the buzzwords keeps changing, right? The other big buzzword, probably even a bigger buzzword in India is deep tech. And I was just on a panel yesterday. Krish Gopalakrishnan was also there. Even a guy who's making a diaper is saying, I'm a deep tech fund. Go figure. And I'll come to your question, I promise you. I was on another panel, yeah, deep tech chidiya kya hai, right? So I was trying to, everybody has their own view of deep tech. And one guy said that something that you can't understand is deep tech. I was not sure if he was joking or if he was serious. I'm sure you'll run into somebody who will say that something that can't be understood is AI. So as an investor, all these newfangled toys keep coming. There's AI, there'll be cloud, there'll be quantum. The next hot buzzword is quantum, I can promise you. So give it a couple of years, everybody will be quantum focused fund. I don't think we get carried away by buzzwords. That's not to say that we do everything right. There is all the choices you make. There are always pros and cons. But we want to still figure out what is the direct connect between what the founder has studied, what the founder has worked in, and what he's promising or she is promising to deliver. Until that is missing, it doesn't matter. It's deep tech, it's lasers, it's semiconductors, it's AI. It's very, very easy. If I can promise you, if you do this for 15, 20 years, you'll be able to figure out in the first conversation if this guy is real or if this guy is somebody else. In your neck of the woods, another story. It becomes easy, right? I was at a semiconductor conference, first time ever. We've been doing it for 15, 20 years. Semiconductor is another hot area. There were more investors in the room than startup founders. That is a clear indicator that this has gotten crazy out of hands. There was one guy whose tagline was from sardines to semiconductors. So from our neck of the woods, when the panwala starts giving you stock tips, you know you're at the hype cycle. AI is just about there.
So where do you see regulation going with this? Because everything is AI today, and it's become so much a part of our lives, where I read the other day that people are chatting with AI bots, and so people who are depressed, and they're actually listening to what these bots are, whatever are telling them. So where do you see regulation coming in all this?
So I think still even the governments across the world are not very clear about how do you manage this. For them, this is like a monster that they cannot handle, or rather they cannot have a grasp of it. So I think overall the regulation will keep evolving, because the way, as Mayuresh mentioned, the way the technology has been changing, the regulation I may introduce today may be irrelevant probably 3 months down the line. So I think it's going to evolve over a period of time. But important thing is how we are kind of using this AI in the right way, in the ethical way. Because ultimately, what is the benefit of AI? Primarily from a business point of view, if you see, what problem all are solving. One, AI gives you predictions. AI gives you personalization. You're talking about content. I want to see the content only I like. Okay, earlier it was not possible. Okay, now personalization is another thing. And third, most important for a businessman like us, productivity. So with a team of, let's say, 100 people, okay, I would be doing a probably turnover of 100 rupees. But with AI tools, effective use of AI tools, okay, probably can I increase my revenue? I won't say I'll fire my employees, because I think that's another worry area. There's a lot of fear that AI is going to replace humans. I think AI is not going to replace humans. AI maybe, is a challenge to the human laziness rather. Okay, so if I would say I'll have the same resources, but can I increase my productivity to 10x by, in that way I can increase my revenue or profitability by probably X multiple. So how we use AI is the critical part. And I think there are a lot of opportunities in India. So Mayuresh, what are the segments or opportunities you specifically say in the Indian context? Because I think traditionally, India is a great copycat market. There's an Amazon, and there's a Flipkart, there's a PayPal, and there's Paytm. I think we are very good at it. Okay, but AI, I'm not sure how we can solve Indian problem with the imported AI models. Because India is a very uniquely positioned in this AI game. We are a country full of contradiction, chaos, creativity. I think that's a huge opportunity because this kind of messy data only AI can solve. So what are the things that you feel that that's the where I want to write checks because we want to build companies in that segment?
Yeah. No, so we've focused on what is wrong. Clearly, a lot is going right also, right? In the longest time, India has an opportunity. Whatever is happening with President Trump, with China, that has thrown enormous opportunities for us in India. One area which we have been thinking deeply about is, ever since George Boolean invented the Boolean language, which is the 0, 1, the race has been to digitize everything. But look around all of us. Our world is not digital, it's all analog. So our belief is analog computing will come back in some shape or form. And there's no reason why India can't get ahead of the race. IISc just has an analog computer that has come out. In fact, Chris and I were discussing exactly the same thing yesterday. There is an entire operating system that will need to be get built out. There is an entire layer that will have to be for AIs and LLMs. Given our software jobs, there's no reason why India can't be the world leader in that. Intelligence around hardware, that is a huge opportunity for us in India. And I don't need to tell you folks in Kerala, given your electronics and hardware DNA and history, that some of your best founders should definitely be at the forefront of making a go at intelligent software. What is happening is, earlier you have these trade blocks, right? You had ASEAN, you had NATO, you had the EU. With what is happening in the US, trust is being broken. And once trust is broken, it's very difficult to build the trust again. So what the Indian government is doing is exactly what will be done by several other governments, which will be bilateral. We'll have deep relationships, not with EU, but with countries within the EUs. We'll have a deep relationship with the US. We'll have deep relationships in Africa. The other great area that I believe India will have a tremendous head start is defense. Now, we work a lot with the various defense arms. It's very difficult to work with them. Procurement is a challenge, and all the give take that happens in India happens. But a refreshing perspective was provided to me by this young paratrooper who's as soldierly as you can come. A paratrooper, the bugger is hefty, 6'3", vagara, vagara. But he was sent by the Indian Army to do a master's in AI and visual recognition from UT Austin. He topped that up with a PhD in AI and visual recognition. He has gone and worked out with the US forces. When I asked, my first question was, are there more like you? He said, yes, not enough, but the Indian Armed Forces are working on it. I'll come to where the opportunity is. He says, there are a lot of countries in Africa, the global south as our Prime Minister calls. They can't afford the Western technologies and artillery hardware. It's too costly. They don't have faith in China because we know what the Chinese do. So who's the other player in the market where they, at least the technological arc is upwards and they have trust? It's India. All the countries across Africa, Algeria, Morocco, South Africa, whoever wants defense hardware, software hardware, AI-enabled hardware, surveillance. What is surveillance? What is drones? Nothing but AI-enabled hardware. If our founders start working on these, there are enormous opportunities. This consumer play that is happening at the US level, I don't think we are best placed to play that game, because how many founders can go out and raise a Series A that is $15 million, $20 million? We just can't raise that. The US has taken 80 years to get there. We will not take 80 years for sure, but it will definitely take 15, 20 years. So till we get to that stage, we have to play to our strengths, which is solve our problems where the US will just not be given an option to participate. How many of you guys have heard of Palantir? The company? Only 1%, 3%, 4% people. You know what Palantir does? If there is, we have infiltrations in Jammu and Kashmir day in and day out. It is such a broken process. The guy who's in the field has to call up somebody who is the commander. He has to go to call up to the general who's managing the northern area, and then the order is given to fire upon. But what Palantir does is it takes data from various satellites, both their military, civilian, it maps out terrain, and the guys who are leading, the guy who's on the forefront, he is enabled. What you see in movies, that is actually, that was fictional, this is reality. They'll have handhelds, they'll have tablets, real-time information is passed on to the platoon commander, to the guy who's managing the ops. The first guys into Pahalgam as an example will not be humans, it will be these bots. Why do you need humans to be in the line of action? Send in a bot, neutralize them, use drones, and try and stitch all of that together. Where are the Indian startups? I came across one, but these are the opportunities in India.
I think just, so one is this, those deep tech-focused solution by using AI. But then I think for a layman like us, Jacob, okay, for us, the problem is health, education. Those are a large problem in India. And I think there's a huge opportunity of AI, if deployed well, that, the way you can predict disease or prevention of disease using AI, which can be used by masses in India. Probably education, a personalized tutoring can happen in India, the way it's happening globally. I think these are the smaller problems. I think the Western country, the US, is primarily operating at that open AI and that, that level where India, we don't have the resources. I think Indian investors are unable to write those bigger checks to create that kind of solution. So I think we need to think small. So I think there are a lot of micro tsunamis happening parallelly in India in different sectors. Now, if you can get, you can understand that, probably there is something that is value that can be created. And probably, Jacob, for example, you were talking about healthcare and education. Now, when you run an enterprise, okay, the decision-making process earlier for a promoter like you was primarily gut-driven, or at the most now using some dashboard, right? Now, AI can simplify in such a way and probably make your business much, much better. So how do you see this, you want to leverage for your business?
See, as a consumer of AI, I think what I've saved is time. A whole lot of time which used to be spent on getting data, figuring what to do with it. Today you get up in the morning, your dashboards actually show you real-time data, and it's not historic data that it's showing you, because actually figuring out what you've done the previous day and giving you data. So it's very dynamic, and the back-end operations, I have no clue. But I get the data which I want, on which I can make a decision making, and by 10, 11, that whole thing is over. So it frees up a lot of time for strategic insight and other things, and that's what I'm sure for everyone. But also I think, okay, we're running out of time, but I just wanted to just put in one thing here also, and I want to talk about healthcare since you talked about healthcare. And so you have the latest generations of machines coming up with the MRIs and the scanning machines, etc., where earlier you take an MRI, you wait for the doctor has to see the report, give you the thing. Today, the scan comes with a report. It comes with a report which it's cross-verified with million or billion of other things. So this is just a use case scenario which is very relevant today as we speak, and it's getting more mature. Do you see other areas like this? And this would be my last prod to you. Do you see other areas like this where AI is just so, it's going to disrupt the market in such a way, but in a very nice or in a very positive way?
All of it. One active conversation that is going on at the policy level, and you've seen that happening with Zoho, Atarai, right? There is a strict mandate from the government that some of these applications that are using our data, we don't need to have a company or a startup or an incumbent sitting outside India being the prime source of delivery, right? And I think increasingly that will happen. that will again throw a lot of opportunities. Why should we have startups that are looking at healthcare as an example, that is looking off at all of our data? Why should somebody sitting in the US be the guy who's rolling out models, right? So data is, everybody talks about the new oil. Data absolutely is the new oil. But till now, we did not have the wherewithal to deal with data. I think that will slowly change. Healthcare is a huge disruption opportunity. AI is going to disrupt everything. That is a fact of life, right? You already see intelligent vehicles. The one other area that our founders are really good at is material science. There are already some AI LLMs out in the wild that are dreaming up, I'm not using the word hallucinating, but dreaming up novel materials that you and I have not even thought about. The fundamental way of how physics is done is still limited by our human cells, but all that is also changing. And that is going to, I know I'm talking really newfangled things, but until and unless you start at the top, the bottom does not get changed. You have to understand the mother industry for all technology has always been defense. You look at microwaves, you can look at cell phones, you look at the microprocessor. Everything has started off with defense. It's not a coincidence that the biggest, strongest military industry alliance in the world is the US. There's no reason why we can build out. And out of that, there'll be enormous implications. We've already heard of how our defense forces have created long-lasting foods that can be used in Siachen. You've already heard about how blood thinners can be created. I've heard of guys sitting in Ahmedabad, Institute of Physical Laboratory, where they have a technology to create synthetic blood. We have all of that, but unfortunately the industry, academia interaction is missing. What I speak is in silos and I don't reach out to other people. Our biggest curse is we are very transactional. We don't talk collaborative. I think if we get that piece fixed out, I think everything else will fall into place.
Short answer.
Absolutely. So I think one more big opportunity, especially in the Indian context, is twofold. One, the SMEs and the mid-sized enterprises have not kind of leveraged technology to the fullest. And probably AI can democratize that, and SMEs can benefit because there are 6 crore plus SMEs in India. Also, India, unlike most of the Western countries, we have multiple languages. So AI in vernacular language, if we mix this, a mid-sized enterprise and a vernacular AI solution, can create a huge change at a grassroots level, which can, kind of benefit not only the promoters, but the consumers as well. I think I see that as a huge opportunity, a big challenge though, but still it's a great opportunity.
Thank you so much. And I think we are running out of time, so it's kind of an abrupt stop, but I can have one question? Okay, we have 2 minutes, which I'm giving as grace to you. Thank you so much, Kashyap and Mayuresh. What we try to do is just have a conversation on AI from 3 different perspectives. Someone who consumes AI, someone who works with AI, and someone who funds AI. And what we try to do is actually give you a micro and a macro perspective of what is happening at the top level, which a lot Mayuresh talked about, and what's happening at the very lower level, and that's what Kashyap was talking about. I don't know if it came out that way, but that's what we were trying to do. And I hope we go out of this place with a little more knowledge on what AI is, but also on the umpteen opportunities that are prevalent today, where many of us can actually go and start looking at opportunities and start doing things. So thank you so much to the 2 of you, and over to you.
Thank you, Mayuresh, Raut, Kashyap, Pandya, and Jakobi. I'd like to invite Saju James, Managing Director and Partner, Fragom in India, and a TiE Charter member to hand over a small memento.